And that is what it is about. Okay. That's what it's about. So listen, you're in a relationship right now, or you're about to be in one, and there is a pattern playing underneath every interaction that you cannot see. You always got to pay attention to the patterns. It feels like love, it feels like commitment, it feels like you're doing the right thing. But what's actually happening is you're slowly disappearing. You're trading pieces of yourself for the promise of connection. And every time you do it, you tell yourself it's what mature, you know, conscious people do. Well, today I'm going to show you exactly what that pattern is, why you keep repeating it, and most importantly, how to break it without blaming your partner or sabotaging the relationship you want to build. Okay. So emotional compromise versus genuine love. The invisible equation you've been running. Here's what most people get wrong about healthy relationships. When we've been taught so much, you don't know what to believe. We've been taught that love is about compromise, give and take, meeting in the middle, sacrifice, and some of that is true. Real relationships do require flexibility and generosity, but there's a version of compromise that's actually a slow arise of who you are, and it masquerades as maturity. Okay. I call it emotional compromise. And it's the number one reason people who are deeply self aware end up feeling disconnected from themselves within the relationships they built to feel connected. All right. Now, let me break this down. How it works. Emotional compromise happens when you adjust your authenticity, your needs, your boundaries, your values, or even your emotional truth to keep someone else comfortable or prove your love. It's not a one time thing, it's a pattern. Okay. You notice your partner gets irritated when you talk about your dreams. So you stop bringing them up. The emotional compromise. You know you need more alone time to recharge, but asking for it feels selfish. So you push through burnout instead of what? Right. That's emotional compromise. You have a different vision for your future, but you soften your voice about it because you don't want to create conflict. Emotional compromise over months and years, these small adjustments add up, and suddenly you're living a life that looks good from the outside but feels hollow on the inside. The reason this pattern is so dangerous for someone like you is that you're self aware enough to notice it happening, but you're also compassionate enough to rationalize it. You tell yourself that this is what love requires, that real partners sacrifice for each other, that wanting your own space or your own goals or your own voices is somehow selfish. You watch yourself disappear and you feel guilty for not being grateful for the relationship you have. Does that land? Because I've seen this 100 times, and I've seen this in hundreds of people who come to me thinking the problem is their partner when the real problem is the invisible contract they sign with themselves. Here's the cost of staying in that pattern. You lose touch with what you actually want. Your intuition gets fuzzy because you're so focused on reading your partner's emotional temperature that you stop reading your own, and you start to resent the person you love because they're not making you happy. And when the real issue is that you've handed them all the power to determine whether you're allowed to be yourself. And the relationship itself becomes fragile because it's not built on two whole showing up authentically. It's built on one person trying to be small enough to fit in. The space, everything goes wrong. In the space, another person has decided to or is acceptable. That's not love. That's a performance. Okay. Why you keep choosing this pattern though? Here it goes. You need to understand something about why this pattern is so tricky and sticky. It's not because you're broken or needed or codependent, though those are the labels we throw at ourselves. It's because emotional compromise actually works in the short term when you soften your needs and adjust your truth. The immediate results is less conflict. Your partner feels safer. The relationship still feels more stable. And you kind of get the hit of being needed, of being the one who understands, of being the mature one who knows how to love. That feels good for a moment. That feels like proof that you're doing relationship right. But here's the thing, nobody tells you. The short term peace comes at the cost of long-term peace with yourself. You're trading your internal alignment for external harmony. And for someone who is genuinely committed to authenticity living, that trade, that right there, that trade never actually works. You might not feel it for 6 months or a year, but eventually the disconnection between who you are and who you're becoming becomes impossible to ignore, and they explode. You start to feel resentful. You start to wonder if your partner even knows that it's real, that even knows the real you. You start to question whether this relationship is actually serving you, when the real question is whether you're actually serving yourself within. The second reason this pattern persists is that most of us learn it early. We grew up in families where there was an unspoken rule that keeping the peace was more important than being honest. Oh no, you got to be real. Or we will learn that our needs were inconvenience, or we watched a parent sacrifice everything and called it love. These patterns run deep. They're not intellectual. They are what you call cellular. They're in their, that right there is in your nervous system. So when you find yourself in a relationship with someone you genuinely care about, your system naturally defaults to the strategy that keep you safe before. Compromise, adjust, make yourself smaller. No, make them comfortable. No, but you're not that person anymore. You're someone who has done the work to become self-aware. You're someone who knows what authenticity look like. The living looks like anyways. And that's why this pattern is so powerful for you specifically. You can see it happening and you hate yourself for repeating it, which creates shame on top of the original compromise. And guess what you do? You end up in a cycle where you're sacrificing yourself and judging yourself for sacrificing yourself. That's the real prison. You got to unlock that and unleash it. Relationship moments, conversations, they move. Okay. The relationship framework that changes everything. This is an equity that changes everything. So how do you break this pattern without destroying the relationship? The answer is what I call the relationship equity framework, and it completely reframes what healthy compromise actually looks like. Here's the core principle. A healthy relationship is not built on equal sacrifice. It's built on equal value. Let me say that again because this is the shift that changes everything. Equal value means that both peoples need boundaries, truth, and core self are treated as equally important, not important, not more important, equal. This is different from equal sacrifice because sacrifice implies that someone is giving up something they actually need. Real relationships don't require that. Real relationships require that you bring your whole self and your partner brings their whole self. And then you figure out how to build something together from the authenticity or either the foundation of what you're building. When you operate from the equity of the framework, the question you ask is not how much am I willing to give up to make this work? The question becomes how do we both stay whole while building something together? That shifts everything because now compromise is not about you making yourself smaller. It's about two people who respect each other's core truth and finding creative solutions that honor both. If one don't, it's not a relationship. So let me give you a concrete example because this is where it gets real. Let's say you need solitude to recharge. You're an introvert, and without a long time, you become depleted and resentful. In the emotional compromise mode, you would feel guilty for this need. Guess what? You tell yourself that a good partner is always available. You push through your depletion because asking for space feels like you're rejecting your partner. You end up burned out or irritable and blaming them for not understanding you. In the equity framework, it looks different. You own your need fully. You say, I need alone time to be my best self in this relationship. That's not negotiable because it's not a preference. It's a core requirement for my well being. Now, here's the important part your partner also gets to be whole. Maybe they have a need for, closeness or shared time. Both needs are equally valued. So instead of you disappearing, you actually problem solve together. You create a schedule. You find rituals that meet both needs. You might decide that you have 3 evenings a week where you have uninterrupted couple time, and you have 2 evenings where you have solo time. You build it, check-ins, so neither person is guessing about what the other needs. You treat it like a partnership where both people are equally important. Now, the difference is profound. In the first model, you're sacrificed and resenting. That's what happened. In the second model, you're honoring yourself and your partner stimulates that. Okay. The relationship becomes stronger because it's built on two people who are both present and whole, not on one person trying to be small enough to fit in. Okay. Emotional compromise versus relationship equity. Section 4, the one decision that breaks the cycle. Now, breaking this pattern is not complicated, but it is courageous because the moment you decide that your core self is not negotiable, you're going to actually issue a boundary. Issuing a boundary. And boundaries, especially for people who have been in the emotional compromise pattern for a long time, can feel like rejection. They're not. Boundaries are actually the foundation of real love. And here's the decision you need to make. You need to decide that you are not willing to disappear anymore, not for anyone, not even for someone you love. And then you need to communicate that right there, that decision with your partner. When you do, guess what? Not as a threat, not as an ultimatum, but as a truth. You say something like, I realize I've been adjusting who I am to make this relationship work. And I'm not willing to do that anymore. I want to be my full self. I will be. I want to be I want to be fulfill myself in this relationship. And I want you to be fulfill yourself too. That means we might need to have some honest conversation about what we both actually need. They might accept it and might not. Now, here's what happens next. I want to prepare you for it, okay? Some partners will hear this and feel threatened. They might, interpret it as you being less committed. They might pull back or become defensive. That's their process. And it's not your responsibility to manage their emotional reaction to your authenticity. What is your responsibility is to stay grounded in your own truth, to not slip back into old patterns or reassuring them or making yourself small again. For many people, this is where the real breakthrough happens because you refuse to disappear. One of the two things occur. Either your partner rises to meet you and you both grow into a healthier relationship together, or you discover that the relationship was only working when you were compromised. And that's actually valuable information. And because staying in a relationship that only works when you're not fully yourself is not love, it's a cage, and you're the one holding the key. The decision to stop emotional compromise is the decision to start living authentically, even within your closest relationships. And that's the part that requires real courage because you can't control the outcome. You can't guarantee that your partner will change. You can't assure that the relationship will become what you want it to be. All you can do is show up as yourself and let the relationship be what it actually is. Okay. Rewriting your emotional, rewriting your internal permission structure. This is the moment of strength, clarity, and authenticity connection. But here's what I know about you. Your mind is probably already offering you reasons why this won't work for you or work for your situation. Your relationship is different. Your partner won't understand. And you tried, and now you tired. You tired of being honest before and it didn't go well. You don't want to rock the boat. You're not the type of person who prioritizes yourself. These are the stories that show up. These are the stories that keep the pattern alive. And they're running in your system right now as you listen to this. So I want to address the actual internal work that has happened underneath the decision to stop emotionally compromising. And this is where mirror work comes in. I know mirror work can feel awkward at first. Standing in front of a mirror and speaking affirmations feels cringy if you've never done it. But what's actually happening is you're rewiring your nervous system to believe something new about yourself. You're literally reprogramming the part of your brain that says you don't deserve to take up space. I did it before I got married, and I'm going to do it again. Now, here's what this looks like in the practice. You look yourself in the eye and you say, I am worthy of being fully myself in my relationships, not someday, now. I don't have to earn the right to have my own needs. I don't have to prove my love by disappearing. My authenticity is not a threat. My boundaries are not selfish. I can be loving and whole at the same time. You say this every single day, not once, multiple times, and you let yourself feel the resistance that comes up. Make sure you do that, because here's what happens. The first time you say something like, I'm allowed to have my own needs, your nervous system might actually rebel against it. That's not because it's not true. It's because your system has been organized around the opposite belief for a long time. You're literally asking your brain to to actually be rewired. And rewiring takes repetition. It takes patience. It takes you choosing the new belief over and over again, even when the old belief feels familiar. This is the invisible work that nobody talks about when they talk about relationship breakthroughs. You can make the decision to stop compromising. You have you actually you can have the conversation with your partner, but if you don't rewire the internal belief that you're not allowed to take up space, you'll slip right back into that pattern. The old programming will pull you back because it's familiar. And familiarity, all that big word right there, feels safe even when it's painful. All right. And so now you got to move into those morning routines. I want you to imagine something for a moment. Imagine waking up tomorrow in a relationship where you don't have to manage your partner's emotions, where you can say what you actually think without calculating the risk, where where your needs are taken as seriously as theirs are, where you can be tired and say so without feeling guilty, where you can have a different opinion and it's not a threat to the relationship, where your partner actually knows you because you stop hiding. This is not a fantasy. This is what happens when two people commit to showing up authentically. And the interesting thing is that the relationship often becomes stronger, not weaker, because it's no longer held together by one person's effort to keep everything smooth. It's held together by genuine connection, mutual respect, and there's less resentment because there's lessons behind everything, and there's less sacrifice. There's more intimacy because there's less pretending. But more importantly, you become whole again. You remember what your own voice sounds like. You reconnect with what you actually want, and you stop waking up with that. You stop waking up with that low level anxiety about whether you're doing enough to keep the relationship stable. You trust yourself again. And that shift isn't you ripples out into every area of your life. Your work becomes clearer, your friendships deepen, your sense of who you are becomes solid again. This is the transformation that happens when you move from emotional compromise to relationship equity. And it starts with one decision, one conversation, one moment where you decide that your core self is not negotiable. Hello, somebody. Your authenticity is the foundation. And if this is landing for you and you know you're ready to stop disappearing in your relationships and start showing up as yourself, I want to invite you to join me on the 7-day breakthrough to authenticity. It's authentic living. It's an authentic living challenge. This challenge is designed specifically for people like you and myself who are self aware enough to see their patterns but haven't had a clear path to break them. Over 7 days, I'll walk you through the exact process to dissolve the limiting beliefs that keep you compromised, heal the relationship patterns you didn't even know you were running, and activate your most authentic self. you'll get clarity on what you'll actually want and the courage to ask for it. The challenge is free. All the links are in the description. And to subscribe and to subscribe to this channel, because every single week I'm releasing frameworks that help you live more authentically and build relationships that actually work. Let's go.